I am Upasana and I'm here with Silve Serenius-Sirve to interview her in her office today about Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, also known as ADHD. Today we'll be digging in deeply into ADHD, starting with what ADHD actually is, how people can manage and navigate with it, the hidden strengths and creativity that is often overlooked, and how we can better support individuals with ADHD in schools, universities, and modern workplaces. Before we start, let's introduce Silve. By training, Silve is a psychologist and leading a unit of neuropsychiatric services in an expert organization.
Barnavårdsföreningen.
Yes, and she has been working in this current position for 20 years. She's an absolute expert. Previously, for about 10 years, she's been also working at a neuropsychiatrist disorder with children's and youth hospitals across different departments, as well in private research and rehabilitation centers. Additionally, she's also been involved in developing reading, writing, and mathematical difficulty tests for psychologists and in writing sections for nonfiction books for ADHD. So I'm really excited today and curious on this topic because we will be learning a lot today. So let's start with the first question.
Yeah.
What is ADHD and how would you describe ADHD in simple terms?
ADHD, so this Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, is a neurodevelopmental syndrome and that impairs functioning. ADHD is a condition that affects how the brain develops and also some cognitive processes and makes everyday life much more challenging when you have ADHD. A person has difficulty regulating their activity and attention in ways required by different situations. And the core symptoms of ADHD are persistent difficulties with activity regulation, attention, or impulsivity, which interfere with functioning and deviate from age and developmental level. Difficulties with executive functioning are also common. You say how to plan, how to prioritize some things and start and how to complete the tasks. Difficulty in regulating activity means being unable to adjust one's activity and behavior appropriately to the situation. For example, a person may be overly active or restless when tasks require calm focus, listening, or waiting. Hyperactivity is not always outwardly visible. It can manifest as internal restlessness, with thoughts jumping rapidly between different topics, and a constant sense of agitation maybe. Too little activity then may appear as difficulty initiating tasks or slowness.
Okay, thank you. That's a really good definition of ADHD because usually it's really confusing for people when they search it up in the internet.
Yeah.
So secondly, is ADHD genetic or are people simply more distracted because of modern life, such as social media or diets and our day-to-day routine?
ADHD is genetic, but also the environment affects it. And you can say that inattention, difficulties in activity regulation, and impulsivity occur occasionally in all of us, in all individuals. But the distinction from ADHD is made based on the persistence, severity, and functional impairment of the symptoms. And when you say it's neurodevelopmental syndrome, it begins in early in childhood, even before you're born. So it affects how the brain develops and some cognitive processes as well. It can be diagnosed in childhood, adolescence, or in adulthood, but it's somehow always there at the beginning. And the background is multifactorial and develops through a mix of genetic and environmental factors. Genetics play a big role. Research shows that 74 till 88% of ADHD risks comes from inherited traits. And environment also matters. There's some protective factors, but also some risk factors from the environment. Say some help reduce symptoms, but some make them worse. And these protective factors are clear instructions, structured situations, breaking goals into smaller steps, and positive encouragement, focusing on strengths and reducing stress. But the risk factors, which make the symptoms often worse, they are some unclear instructions, noisy or overstimulating environment, expecting too much of the independence, say, to carry out all alone all the plans and tasks, and some negative atmosphere as well.
Okay, that is quite a bit. Thank you. So, in today's overwhelming world, is it possible for someone to recognize that they have ADHD on their own with all the symptoms that you've mentioned already?
Yes, it is. People talk a lot about ADHD nowadays. And some may think that it's very, often occurred ADHD. Not all concentration difficulties are ADHD, though. And some people also might think that they see some ADHD symptoms in TikTok or call somebody who says, I have ADHD, so they think they have the same problems, but maybe they don't. But nowadays people talk also about ADT, attention deficit trait, and that refers to acquired difficulties with concentration. So a person's focus becomes very fragmented, maybe, when the attention repeatedly shifts away from the tasks and at hand, and for example, to a smartphone, some notification sounds or the noise and events in open workplaces. So there's also this kind of concentration problem nowadays more.
Okay, so what truly separates real ADHD from normal everyday distractions and anxiety then?
ADHD, however, never begins suddenly, and it's not. It doesn't depend on the task or on the environment. It's always there in the brain, and no external factor can cause ADHD just like that. It affects it, but can't cause it, as a neurodevelopmental disorder. And in diagnostic evaluation, both the number and duration of the symptoms are considered, and the criteria require that some symptoms must have been seen before the age of 12. And at the time of assessment, symptoms have been present regularly for at least 6 months. So it can't be some occasionally thing. And most importantly, the symptoms must cause some clear difficulties in everyday life. It's not just this week or this day's problem. It's persistent, which we require. And symptoms must appear in different situations with different people also. So assessment requires information about functioning and the impact of symptoms at home, in school, both in class and during breaks, in study environments or at work. And it's also checked that the symptoms are not better explained but by other factors such as temporary circumstances. ADHD often occurs alongside other conditions as well, say such as language difficulties, some learning problems, sleep problems, anxiety, maybe depression or some behavioral addictions. And this makes careful differential diagnosis very essential.
Okay, so that's a really good differentiation of like modern society nowadays and how everything's changed and what ADHD actually is. So what are some harmful stereotypes or common sayings about ADHD that make people afraid to open it up even after knowing and after being diagnosed with ADHD?
I think the most common misunderstanding is that everybody believes that if they have seen one person with ADHD, they know all about it, but it can vary very much between different people who have ADHD, because there's always a different combination of core symptoms, which varies to person and different personality behind it and temperament. And I think also very common misunderstanding is that ADHD is only some boys' issue or only with small children. It might be very visible with small children, but it doesn't only affect children. And I think other false assumptions include thinking that people with ADHD are less intelligent, or they're somehow just lazy, they won't do it, or that symptoms prevent further education. And I think that's the main reason people don't want to say that I have ADHD.
Okay, so now let's talk about controlling ADHD once you already know you have ADHD and have been diagnosed. So can ADHD be managed with medication? And if so, how do these medications work? Do they improve brain chemical balance and metabolism? And can these medicines correct the brain chemical imbalances seen in ADHD? And how do these affect people and their well-being in the long run?
Yeah. ADHD symptoms can be treated with both medication and psychosocial methods. And the medication must not ever be the only cure to the symptoms, but they also have to be some psychosocial methods as well. The need for treatment is assessed individually, and rehabilitation methods are planned to suit every person just how they need it. And psychosocial approaches appropriate to the person's age are recommended as the first line of treatment always. And medication may be necessary as part of the overall care plan. And its use is considered once the diagnosis is confirmed, not earlier on, especially if the support and treatment other way are not sufficient. Medication works by influencing neurotransmitters in the brain, especially the dopamine and noradrenaline. And these chemicals play a big role in regulating alertness, concentration, and motivation. And that's why they are used in the case of ADHD. Support measures at school and in everyday life should begin as soon as difficulties with attention hyperactivity or impulsivity are noticed. And if these supports reduce symptoms enough, maybe there's no needed to assess ADHD further. And special attention should be given to lifestyle habits that support overall well-being, such as getting enough sleep, regular physical activity, maintaining daily routines, healthy nutrition, and balanced use of digital media. And I think that's a lot to talk about nowadays, the essential use of digital media. In treating children with ADHD, it's especially important to guide parents in helping their child. We have the national current care guidelines in Finland, which we use, and that includes also recommendations to the daily routines and enough sleep and very high control with digital media.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about the hidden strengths, like mini superpowers of ADHD. So what are some strategies or abilities do you see within people with ADHD that our society often overlooks?
People with ADHD traits are often highly innovative, and they're very energetic and productive. And they tend to be curious about many different things and easily excited and very eager to experiment things and try new approaches. So there's lots of energy, which can be very useful at school and at workplaces as well.
And one thing that I've noticed is that some of the world's biggest innovators have some kind of neurodiverse condition, which is awesome hearing about this because they're often overlooked, especially in, for example, schools. There are many different comments made towards these students. So at least there are people that they can look up to.
Yeah, I think they have the excitement and the courage to learn very different things and curiosity to, check things out. And
So now let's move on into schools, university, and different workplaces. So what are some small accommodations that can make a big difference for students with ADHD in schools and universities? I'm specifically focusing on schools and universities because these students later enter their workplaces, and this really showcases if they receive proper support and education about ADHD in their studies, which shows in their workplaces. And if they get this support, does it show that they're able to thrive in their diverse workplaces in the future?
Yes, they really do if they have the support. And people with ADHD need external guidance, often quite much and many longer than any other people maybe, and help with planning, prioritizing what needs to be done, when, with whom, what resources are required, in what order to proceed, and what comes next. So these are the executive functions to be helped. And support is often needed both to get started and to follow tasks through to completion. They also benefit greatly from positive encouragement and feedback to maintain the motivation, and especially when the task itself is not personally interesting for them. And support is needed for regulating the balance between energy, activity, and rest, so that they won't be very stressed when they try to be energetic. It's important to have rest as well. And I think most importantly, a positive atmosphere and an environment that takes support needs into account is essential for effective learning, especially with ADHD.
Okay. And finally, after watching this video, if someone may realize that they have symptoms similar to ADHD that you've mentioned previously, what message would you like them to hear?
I think they need to hear that everything is okay and they can focus on their strengths and they can seek help if they need it, but maybe just to calm down and have some information and then learn how to cope. There are many skills, but how to cope with them and have some need, ask some help if it's needed, but to control the functioning.
Thank you so much, Silve, for your time and for answering our question. And I'm sure that everyone watching this video, specifically people my age, have learned something new because when I entered this room, I did not know so much. So thank you so much, and hopefully the viewers enjoyed watching this and have learned something new. Thank you so much.
Thank you.